Hi, I'm Arabella, a storyteller on YouTube. This story is inspired by real relationship confessions and has been fictionalized for storytelling purposes. Names, details, and events have been changed. If this story moves you, or if you see a part of yourself in it, please like the video and subscribe to support my channel. Now, let's begin. In my head, I was not cheating. I was finally being brave. I told myself my partner had become the wall between me and happiness, and the other person was the only one who truly saw me. I called the lies protection. I called the secrecy connection. I called betrayal living honestly. Until the rush faded and my soulmate became a stranger. While the family I thought I could return to was no longer whole. Before there was a third person, I had already started rewriting my partner in my head. That is where the betrayal really began. Not in a hotel room, not in a late-night message, not in the first touch I should have walked away from. It began at home. In ordinary moments, I decided to turn into evidence. The way she answered me with tired eyes after work. The way dinner became quiet because both of us had run out of things to say. The way bills sat on the counter, laundry waited in baskets, and every conversation seemed to end with something that needed fixing. The sink, the car, the schedule, the life. She was not cruel. That is what I hate admitting. She was not some cold, heartless person trapping me in misery. She was tired. I was tired. We were two people living inside responsibilities that did not care whether we felt seen. But I needed a villain. So I started collecting small disappointments like proof. If she forgot to ask about my day, I told myself she no longer cared. If she went to bed early, I told myself she did not want me. If she reminded me about something practical, I heard criticism instead of partnership. Little by little, I stopped seeing the woman who had stood beside me through real life. I started seeing an obstacle, a wall, the reason I felt trapped. And once I made her that, in my mind, everything became easier to excuse. My distance, my resentment, my need for someone else to look at me like I was still interesting. I did not realize I was not falling out of love all at once. I was editing her into someone easier to betray. I called my exhaustion proof that I deserved to be loved differently. That was the next lie. And it was easy to believe because part of it was real. I was tired. I did feel unseen sometimes. There were nights when I came home and wanted someone to ask how heavy the day had been, not whether I had paid the insurance bill. There were mornings when I looked at my own life and wondered when everything had become so practical. Wake up, work, pay something, fix something, answer someone, sleep, repeat. I started telling myself this was not living. I started telling myself I had become a function in the house, a provider, a problem solver, a body at the dinner table. And instead of saying any of that honestly, I turned it into a private case against her. I told myself she should have noticed. She should have reached for me. She should have known I was lonely without needing me to say it. That is how self-pity becomes dangerous. It sounds like pain at first. Then it quietly turns into permission. I stopped thinking I need to talk to my partner. I started thinking, I have suffered enough. Enough quiet dinners. Enough tired conversations. Enough feeling like the version of me that used to be wanted had disappeared under bills, errands, and routine. But being unhappy did not make me honest. Being lonely did not make me brave. Feeling neglected did not give me the right to create another life behind her back. Those feelings needed a conversation. Maybe therapy. Maybe distance. Maybe a hard truth spoken across a table. But I did not want the hard truth. I wanted relief without accountability. I wanted comfort without conflict. I wanted someone to make me feel alive without first admitting that I had stopped showing up fully in the life I already had. So I took a real feeling and used it to justify a false escape. Then the other person appeared and I called attention destiny. That is embarrassing to say now, because it was not destiny. It was timing. It was convenience. It was someone meeting me at the exact moment I had already started feeling sorry for myself. She asked questions my partner was too tired to ask anymore. Or maybe questions I had stopped giving my partner the chance to ask. She noticed small things: a new shirt, a quiet mood, the way I laughed less in group conversations. She would say, "You seem different today," and I would feel seen. Not because she knew me deeply, because she was looking at the version of me I had chosen to show her. That is what I did not understand then. My partner lived with all of me: the impatient me, the distracted me, the me who left dishes in the sink and forgot appointments and went silent when I should have spoken. The other person got the edited version, the wounded version, the thoughtful version, the version that could talk about longing, loneliness, and dreams without also needing to take out the trash or answer a child's question or remember what needed to be bought before Monday. Of course, she seemed easier. She did not have to live inside the full weight of my life. She only had to stand outside it and listen. And I mistook that for depth. I mistook new attention for rare understanding. I mistook chemistry for proof that the life I had built was wrong. When she remembered something I said weeks earlier, I called it connection. When she laughed at a part of me I thought had disappeared, I called it fate. When she made me feel young, interesting, unfinished, I called her my soulmate. But maybe a soulmate is not the person who meets you only where the light is soft. Maybe the harder truth is this: she felt like a soulmate because she never had to know the ordinary parts of me that love is actually built to survive. I started using beautiful words to clean what I was doing. That is how I stayed in it longer than I should have. I did not say I am lying. I said I am protecting everyone from pain. I did not say I am hiding messages. I said I need one private thing that still belongs to me. I did not say I am betraying the person who trusts me. I said I am finally being honest about what I feel. Words matter. They can make something ugly look almost noble if you choose the right ones. A secret became a connection. A lie became kindness. A late-night message became a lifeline. A stolen hour became a place where I could breathe. And the more beautiful the words sounded, the less I had to look at what they were covering. When I deleted conversations, I told myself I was avoiding unnecessary damage. When I came home late, I told myself I was keeping peace. When I looked my partner in the eye and said nothing was wrong, I told myself the truth would only hurt everyone. But that was not mercy. That was cowardice, dressed in gentle language. I had learned how to make betrayal sound like healing. I would say things like, "I deserve to feel alive." And maybe everyone does. But I used that sentence like a weapon against the person who had built a life with me. I said I am choosing myself. But somehow, choosing myself always required someone else to be kept in the dark. I said I cannot keep pretending, while pretending every single day. That is the thing about self-deception. It does not always sound like a lie. Sometimes it sounds like wisdom, freedom, growth, truth. And once I found words that made me feel brave instead of guilty, I stopped asking whether I was actually becoming better or just becoming harder to confront. I turned my partner into the person standing in the way, because if she was still good, then I had to be wrong. That was the part of the story I needed to fix, so I fixed it in the cruelest way. I took normal things and gave them darker meanings. When she asked where I had been, I called it control. When she reminded me about something I forgot, I called it criticism. When she was quiet, I called it emotional distance. When she was tired, I called it not caring. When she needed me, I called it pressure. And every time I changed the meaning of what she did, I made myself feel a little more innocent. I stopped telling myself I am hurting someone who loves me. I started telling myself I am escaping someone who does not understand me. That sentence was easier to live with. It made me feel brave. It made me feel trapped instead of selfish. It made the other person look like rescue instead of temptation. But my partner was not the villain I made her into. She was the one still asking what was wrong, still trying to reach me through a distance I had created, still living beside a version of me that had already started leaving while I blamed her for feeling the absence. There were nights she would look at me across the room and say, "You're somewhere else?" And I would get angry. Not because she was wrong, because she was close. I needed her to be unreasonable. I needed her to be cold. I needed her to become the reason I could not stay loyal. Because if she was simply human, tired, flawed, stressed, loving me imperfectly, then what I was doing had no poetry, no destiny, no noble pain. It was just betrayal. So I made her smaller in my mind, less gentle, less fair, less deserving of the truth. And that may have been the quietest cruelty of all. Before I broke her trust in real life, I had already rewritten her into someone easier to abandon. The more I hid, the more I convinced myself I was finally living honestly. That is the strangest lie of all. I had two lives, and somehow I called the secret one my truth. At home, I was the person with responsibilities, dishes in the sink, bills on the counter, appointments to remember, conversations that started with, "Did you call them back?" Or "Can you pick this up on the way home?" It felt ordinary. And because it felt ordinary, I started treating it like it was false. But with the other person, everything felt sharp. A message at midnight, a stolen hour in a car, a look across a room that no one else was supposed to understand, a conversation that felt deep because it happened under pressure. I mistook intensity for honesty. I mistook danger for depth. I mistook being desired in secret for being known. Every time my phone lit up, my heart moved before my conscience did. Every time I deleted a message, I told myself I was protecting something fragile. Every time I lied about where I had been, I told myself the lie was only hiding the part of me that had finally come alive. But real truth does not require you to erase evidence. Real love does not need someone else to be kept blind. And real courage does not ask another person to pay for your awakening without knowing they are part of the cost. I did not understand that then. I thought the secrecy made it sacred. I thought the risk proved it mattered. I thought the ache of wanting what I could not openly have meant I had found something rare. But secrecy is not the same as meaning. Sometimes a locked door only makes a small room feel larger than it is. And I built a whole fantasy inside that room, then called it freedom. When everything finally broke open, I still tried to sound like the person who deserved sympathy. That is what I hate most about that night. Not only that I was caught, but that even after being caught, I reached for words that would make me look wounded instead of guilty. She found the messages. Not all of them. Enough. Enough to see the shape of what I had been calling connection. Enough to know that the private world I kept defending in my head had been built on public lies in our home. She stood in the kitchen with my phone in her hand. The same kitchen where we had paid bills, packed lunches, argued about groceries, laughed over burnt food, and lived all the ordinary things I had decided were not enough. She asked, "How long?" I said her name. She shook her head. "How long?" I told her. Not clearly, not fully. I gave her the soft version first because even then I was editing. I said I had been lonely. I said I had felt invisible. I said I did not know how to talk to her anymore. I said I never meant to hurt her. She looked at me like every sentence was landing in the wrong place. Then she said, "So you punished me for not reading your mind." I opened my mouth. Nothing useful came out, because that was exactly what I had done. I had taken feelings I never properly brought to her and used them as evidence against her. I said I just wanted to feel like myself again. She looked down at the phone, then back at me. "No," she said. "You wanted to feel good without being honest about what it would cost." That sentence stripped everything bare. All my beautiful words. All my talk about truth connection. Courage, being alive. In front of her face, they did not sound deep anymore. They sounded cruel. I had called it living honestly while forcing her to live inside a lie. I had called it choosing happiness while taking away her right to choose whether she wanted to stay married to someone like me. And when she finally called it betrayal, there was no better word left to hide behind. When the rush faded, the other person stopped looking like a soulmate. That is the part nobody wants to admit. Because during the affair, everything about her seemed meaningful. The way she listened, the way she touched my arm when I spoke, the way she remembered things my partner had stopped asking about, the way she made me feel like I had been asleep for years, and she was the first person brave enough to wake me. But after the truth came out, there was no secret left to make us feel special. No stolen messages, no hidden afternoons, no danger making every conversation feel deeper than it was. There was just life. Real life. And real life did not flatter us. Suddenly, we were not two misunderstood people finding each other in the dark. We were two people standing in the wreckage of what we had helped destroy. She did not want to talk about lawyers, or bills, or what my family had said, or the way my partner looked when she packed a bag and left the house without raising her voice. She wanted us to hold on to the feeling, but the feeling had changed. It had been fed by escape, and now there was nowhere left to escape from. When I called her sometimes, she sounded tired. When I needed reassurance, she had less to give. When I talked about guilt, she went quiet. Not cruel, just human. And that was the problem. I had not built my fantasy around a human being. I had built it around the version of her who existed outside consequence, the woman who listened, the woman who understood, the woman who made me feel chosen without asking me to carry anything heavy. But now everything was heavy. And she was not my rescue. She was someone I barely knew without the secrecy. We tried to talk like before, but the conversations had corners now. Money, divorce, where I would live, who would hate us, what we had done. The soulmate story did not survive contact with ordinary damage, and once the fantasy thinned out, I saw the truth underneath. She was not the life I had been missing. She was the mirror I used while I was running from the life I already had. Family did not break like a glass. It broke like a routine no one wanted to touch anymore. That surprised me. I thought the damage would look louder. A slammed door, a screaming fight, a suitcase dragged down the hallway in the middle of the night, but the real ending arrived in smaller ways. My partner stopped asking what time I would be home, not because she trusted me, because my answer no longer mattered in the same way. Dinner became something practical. Food on a plate, a chair pulled out, silence between bites. No one saying, "How was your day?" because every answer sounded like another chance to lie. The bedroom changed first. She moved pillows to the other side of the room, then to another room completely. Not dramatically, just quietly, like she was relocating pain to somewhere she could lock the door. The photo on the dresser was turned face down. Then it disappeared. The calendar on the fridge became a document of separation, pickups, appointments, bills, calls with the lawyer. Things that used to mean we were building a life now meant we were dividing one. If there are children in a house when trust breaks, they hear more than adults think. They hear the pauses. They hear the way one parent says the other parent's name differently. They hear the quiet after a door closes. Even when no one explains, the air explains enough. I used to think family was made of big things: love, history, promises, blood. But after what I did, I realized family is also made of tiny, repeated acts. Who buys the toothpaste? Who remembers the school form? Who starts the coffee? Who saves the last piece of cake because someone else likes it more? Who texts "drive safe" without thinking? And when betrayal enters, those small things do not just continue untouched, they become heavy. A grocery list feels like evidence of a life I disrespected. A dinner table feels like a place where someone has to pretend not to be grieving. A simple message about bills feels like the only language left between people who used to speak in everything. I did not just damage love. I damaged the system that carried love through ordinary days. And once that system broke, There was no clean way to put the house back into a shape that felt like us. I thought I had chosen happiness. That is the lie I carried the longest. It sounded better than saying I chose escape. It sounded better than saying I chose attention, secrecy, desire. And a story where I got to be the misunderstood one instead of the unfaithful one. I told myself I was brave. I told myself I was finally honest. I told myself I had found something real. But when all the beautiful words fell away, the truth was embarrassingly simple. I had taken a rush and called it fate. I had taken a stranger's attention and called it being seen. I had taken my partner's ordinary human flaws and turned them into a prison because I needed someone else to look like the key. And by the time I understood that the damage had already learned everyone's name, the other person was no longer a soulmate. My partner was no longer whole with me. The house was no longer innocent. The family was no longer untouched. So I will leave you with this. If someone has to turn their partner into the villain just to make the affair feel like love, was it ever love? Or just a beautiful excuse for leaving destruction behind? Thank you for listening to this story with me. If it touched you, please don't forget to like this video and follow the channel for more stories like this. And most importantly, leave a comment below with your thoughts, how this story made you feel, and what you would have done in their place.